deciding right now, introducing Henry Wesley to you. Some of you have heard his story, and some of you have not. It is a remarkable story, and you see the story right here. So I'm going to move out of the way so that you'll be able to be blessed. Amen? Amen. So we will start. Mr. Wesley.
It is important to me and other consumers for you to form a relationship with us to better understand our thoughts and needs. The more familiar that you are with each person, the easier it makes your job, because you begin to realize what our preferences are and what likes and dislikes we have.
I'll tell them.
The more of a bond that you form, the more likely you are to allow us to try doing things for ourselves, which includes
Okay. This is the talk that Henry does when he's teaching the new staff. It's called People First, and it's based on the 7 core competencies of the Office for People with Developmental Disabilities. Henry took those 7 core competencies and he sat down with his staff and his SDA staff and the speech therapist. So that's what he's doing first. Then we'll do the Henry Wesley story. Okay, go.
Good morning, Don, or would you prefer Mr. Trainer? Are you having a good morning? It is important to me and other consumers for you to form a relationship with us to better understand our thoughts and needs. The more familiar that you are with each person, the easier it makes your job, because you begin to realize what our preferences are and what likes and dislikes we have. The more of a bond that you form, the more likely you are to allow us to try doing things for ourselves, which includes becoming our own advocate and achieving higher levels of independence. It is very important for me to be a part of the group that I am around. When I am on an outing, I enjoy being introduced to other people that may not know who I am, and vice versa. This is how friends are made. Being part of a group is exactly that. Being part of it socially and not just physically. We all value our friends, and the more the merrier. This can also form networking bonds, where people use each other to meet people that they know, who have similar interests, which is the way many groups, clubs, and organizations are formed. It is also very important for me to see my friends and enjoy the community without being around our paid staff all of the time. The feeling of being around us directly may be hard to overcome, but we do like our privacy as much as you do, especially when we have visitors or we are on an outing. Professionalism in the workplace for me applies both to the people I work with and the people I work for. It sets standards and rules that we should all follow. Trust is one of the most important feelings that we need from someone who works with us. Your best friend is probably your best friend because you trust them. Our goals are written specifically for each person, and they are areas that need improvement. So it is important for you to assist us in reaching our goals by being a good coach, being patient, and showing us ways to improve ourselves. This does not only include the person that you are working with directly, but also all the people that are important in their lives, such as family members and friends. Good health is important for everyone. Some of the people you will work with will require encouragement to make healthy choices in their diet. This is important in maintaining their good health. Many people also have dietary restrictions and special food preparations that need to be followed. This is because of diabetes, high blood pressure, gluten or lactose intolerance, and choking risks. Not following a diet plan could constitute abuse and risk the life of the person involved. Abuse also cannot be tolerated. We deserve to be treated with dignity, and because of some of our limitations, we cannot always speak for ourselves. So we need to trust that we will be taken care of in the best way possible. Any and all abuse or suspicions of abuse must be reported immediately to your supervisor. Safety is the most important area of concern to most.
Oh, well, let's try Wayne. You were on safety, I think. You want to try that again? Next one. Skip it this time. Every now and again, his Dynavox goes on the fritz. Not a lot, but occasionally. And sometimes you just got to wait for it to behave a little better. He's about 2/3 of the way through this. And right now it's not wanting to do anything. Why don't we try okay this time and see what it does. Let me do that. Okay. No, don't slide it. It's got to reload. Should only take about 30 seconds.
Safety is the most important area of concern to most consumers. Some of our residents have behavioral plans that are developed specifically for the individual. These are directions to be followed in the event of a behavior being displayed. They are made to help avoid unwanted behaviors. One example is to have a person return to the room and sit on their bed, allowing them time to relax, away from any distractions, and in a calming environment. It is very important to me, my wife Jean, and all consumers to feel comfortable while we are in our own home. The homes should always be clean and need to stay within the boundaries of the state laws and codes. Many of our residents have different abilities of what they can accomplish, and they should be given the opportunity to be as independent as possible. Tasks such as doing laundry or dishes can give residents a feeling of self-worth and pride in what they are able to accomplish. It is also important for us to have our own room and privacy. If our room needs cleaned, it is usually better if you include us in the task, instead of going in our room and doing it for us. Getting out of the house is one of the greatest freedoms that we can enjoy. Most residents like the opportunity to be an active part of their community. We should be encouraged to join clubs, groups, and organizations that allows us to have a voice on what happens around us. Some of us also enjoy going grocery shopping, which can allow us to buy some foods that we prefer. In conclusion, I would like to say what this part of your training is for. It's to help you understand that when you work with us, you need to treat us holistically and not just focus on the physical or mental challenges that we have. There is a whole spectrum of areas that need to be addressed when you are working with us and not just the obvious ones. The more you realize this, the easier your job will be and the more you will enjoy it. Thank you for your attention to my presentation. Introduction.
Do you want to answer any questions
First,
about that?
I would like to thank you for being here today. My name is Henry Wesley, and I am a self-advocate and motivational speaker. The reason behind my presentation is threefold. First, it is my desire to tell my story and bring awareness to the deplorable treatment and conditions that I suffered while institutionalized at Willowbrook so it will never happen again. Second, I would like to discuss self-advocacy and the role it played in making changes for people with disabilities and in my life. And third, I want to share my journey after Willowbrook and my successes, hoping to inspire all people. When I was 3 years old, my parents left me at the door of Willowbrook. I lived there from May 12th, 1949 to December 27th, 1972. It was a total of almost 23 years, which was a big portion of my lifetime. When I was a young boy, I stayed in a room with 50 other children. My undersized crib had one sheet, a pillow and a blanket. Due to the overpopulation and staff-to-child ratio of 50 to 1, I was left in my crib the majority of the time. As a result, my muscles never grew strong. Growing up in Willowbrook with 3,000 to 6,000 other handicapped people was not easy. Willowbrook was finally closed down in 1972 due to poor living conditions, as well as the mistreatment of its residents. I went to school from the time I was 8 years old until I was 21. The teachers were okay, but because I could not speak, they only taught me how to count. I had trouble learning because I didn't have any glasses. I crawled around at Willowbrook until I was 12. I got a walker that I used for 5 years until it broke. I finally got a manual wheelchair that I pushed with my feet backwards. While living at Willowbrook, I had to make rugs on a loom similar to this one. I started making rugs when I was 14. They showed me how to do it once and then said do it yourself. I made rugs the rest of my time at Willowbrook and never received any money for my work. I was abused during my time there, both mentally and physically. The staff called me by a number like I was an inmate in a prison. They also made racial comments. Even when I had done nothing wrong, I was bitten, put in a straitjacket, tranquilized and thrown into a room alone. The conditions at Willowbrook were horrible. The buildings were filthy. There were bugs everywhere that crawled on me and made me itch. Sometimes there were even dead bodies in the hallways. Willowbrook was a horrible place to live. People want to know how I survived. I don't know, I just did. Mobility. Self-advocacy was and still is an important part of my life. The history of advocacy is so important to know and understand. People with disabilities were looked at as objects of scorn or charity, surviving as beggars. In the early years, it was religion that provided basic services and tried to change attitudes toward people with disabilities. Next, people with disabilities were considered to have medical issues in need of professional care in a hospital setting. This viewpoint led to painful treatments for people with disabilities by becoming objects of study and use of experiments. I experienced this personally. In the 60s, 70s, and 80s, parents and children fought for the closure of institutions. At Willowbrook, the patient-to-staff ratio was 50 to 1. There was no way there could possibly be quality of care. Keeping awareness of the deplorable conditions that were in institutions has become a lifelong goal of mine. Self-advocacy. I'm going to share a brief history of important legislation that was passed. The Rehabilitation Act of 1973 is one of the most important pieces of legislation. Section 504 was important because it made it illegal to discriminate against anyone solely on the basis of their disability. In 1975, the Education of All Handicapped Children Act was passed, and it required free, appropriate public education in the least restrictive setting. It is now called the Individuals with Disability Education Act. In 1978, the American Disabled for Public Transit was founded. While some legislation was passing, the Reagan administration terminated the Social Security benefits of hundreds of thousands of disabled recipients. This caused such distress that several committed suicide. Then, in 1990, the American with Disabilities Act was signed by George W. Bush. This act provided comprehensive civil rights protection and was the most sweeping disability rights legislation in history. To get all of these acts passed, many individuals and groups led peaceful and effective demonstrations. Many of us are speaking for ourselves and fighting for social change. We are claiming who we are, where we come from, and where we want to go. Disability is not to be hidden, healed, or even overcome. It is a culture full of shared history and experiences that should be honored and practiced. If you are interested in learning more about all of the legislation, I have a web address I will pass out. Legislation. As I mentioned earlier in my presentation, I lived in Willowbrook Institution for 23 years with 5,000 to 7,000 other residents there. The living conditions were horrible, and I had always hoped for a better place to live someday. After the closure of Willowbrook, I was moved into a smaller ICF, which was better but still not where I wanted to live. I then moved to 2 different group homes which I liked, but I was still living with 10 to 12 other residents, so privacy was still an issue. After me and my wife got married, we had a chance to move to a residential home with 3 other people, and I thought that this would be our best option. Housing. I have a great personal life. I like to go to church on Sunday, fishing with friends, shopping at the mall, and going to the park. I bowl on the league and have many good friends. Halloween is one of my favorite holidays. I especially like to dress up as Michael Jackson because he's my favorite pop singer. He is, after all, the king of pop. Jean and I would like to travel to Hawaii for vacation and go to Disney World and Washington, D.C. again. New personal life. I am writing a book about my life at Willowbrook. I feel very strongly that it is my duty to inform people, so it will never happen again. I also want to write about my journey to inspire people. I want you to remember one thing. People with disabilities are people. We have feelings. We can learn and we deserve respect just like everyone else. That is what I would like to share some insights on understanding and communicating with me and people with disabilities. Don't be afraid to shake my hand when you meet me. It might not always be a conventional handshake, but I also enjoy being acknowledged and professional. Presenting with aphasia does not mean that I do not understand conversations around me. It can be very lonely when people talk over me like I do not exist or make assumptions on what I need or want instead of taking the time to find out my desires or including me in the conversation. Have the patience to let me try and do things for myself. It may get messy, take extra time, or be less than perfect, but that's okay, because it is important for me to be as independent as possible. You might be surprised at what I'm capable of doing. The little things you take for granted are also very important for me to experience. Don't be afraid to ask questions directly to me. I will find a way to answer you. One last thing, if you are ever new staff, please take the time to introduce yourself before rushing into routines. Take the time to give me choices, because I have as many likes and dislikes as you do, and please always respect our privacy. When you are thinking about what type of career you want, please consider working with people with disabilities. You can really make a difference in the lives of people like me. My book. Thank you for your attention today. I hope I have brought an awareness and understanding of people with disabilities. By sharing my past and present life, I hope I have taught you what it is like to be me, and how you, too, can move from adversity to advocacy, because I feel the adversity I suffered while at Willowbrook has helped make me the man I am today. But most of all, I hope I have been an inspiration to all of you, showing how you can face any hardships in life and come out better and stronger than ever. Thank you.
Very nice.
Does anybody have any questions they would like to ask Henry, either about the staff training or about his life story? He'll find a way to answer you. I might be able to help a little bit, but Henry knows. He's the one that's lived it. Yes, ma'am.
Henry, you have artwork that has been displayed in
Yes.
places.
Yes.
He won an award.
I think a couple of times. This year, I took Henry to the Aspire Award ceremony up in Fredonia, and I don't know exactly what the award was that Henry won, but he was one of like 7 artists that were recognized. Then, about 3 days later, I had the pleasure of taking him up to Chautauqua to, what's the fancy hotel there? Yeah, to the Athenaeum, thank you. And just by luck, Henry and I got there, and his art teacher had a family issue that she had to deal with. She couldn't be there. But one of the other art teachers came over. She recognized Henry right away. And she said, "Oh, you just missed the guy from KeyBank." So some gentleman from KeyBank up in Buffalo had come down. He had just paid over $100 for a piece of art that Henry had done, and I got to meet him. And he told me that he comes to this event every year and he looks for Henry's work. He's already bought 2 other pieces of art for over $100. So, you know, it's kind of cool. And I don't have anything that Henry's done, so I'm working on fixing that. I want something to remember Henry by. But yeah, he's pretty much everything he does, he does well. And I think it says in the video, you know, just because you can't talk doesn't mean you don't have anything to say.
That's right.
I've been working with Henry. I'm his self-directed staff, or they used to call it self-determination. But my job is to take Henry out in the community, and for the most part, it's a fun job. You know, I get to help him teach, but you know, if he wants to go to the mall and just cruise around, do some window shopping, Yesterday or 2 days ago, we went out and did some shopping for their anniversary. But,
It's in November, right? Jeannie?
yeah, it's coming up. And of course, we have to hide that. We don't want to tell Jean what she's getting. But it's fun. You know, I'm amazed. Henry volunteers at Second Chances on, it's for the Humane Society. He's a greeter. We haven't done it as much lately. Lately, we've been trying to organize some speaking events, but I know he really enjoys it. I'm amazed at how many people know Henry.
Yeah.
You know, every time I take him someplace, I've lived in this area on and off quite a few years, probably more years total than Henry, but he knows far more people than I do.
Yeah.
And it's neat to see people come up and shake his hand and talk to him. And then, you know, I'll have to introduce myself so I can find out who they are. Any other questions?
Well, I'd like to say this. On behalf of my pastor, this is a great day. I come all the way from Dunkirk. I was raised in New York City, Brooklyn, Manhattan. I had an uncle that worked at Staten Island. I was a bodyguard for Michael Jackson for over 5 years. Most of my family here in the church, I'm saying, they know this. The bodyguard for Whitney Houston, Muhammad Ali, a lot of people. I'm a first-degree black belt in jiu-jitsu. But what I want to say to Henry, I'm going to have to get one of the pictures of me and Michael, who my Pastor Smith, has seen, and give him that picture because it's an honor to know him the way I know him. I worked for the Resource Center 14 years, and it's just wonderful for him to tell his story. I work with a young man named Ernie Johnson. He's from Willowbrook as well. He don't speak, and I'm one-on-one with him 3 days in the week. And Henry, what you're doing needs to go all over the world because you're very special. It just touches me. God bless you. And I want you to know that I'm there for you. And I'm going to give you a picture of me and Michael Jackson. You and Jean. Okay. Nice meeting you.
Nice to meet you. Thank you.
Okay.
Jean was trying to tell you she grew up in New York City as well.
Okay. Very good, Jean.
My mom and dad, where I would be.
Her mom and dad.
Okay.
Boys.
Beautiful.
My father is
Oh, beautiful.
unbelievable.
I don't know where she is.
My father.
Her maiden name was Jeffords.
Okay.
And the one time, because I used to take care of Jeannie and Henry, I've
Okay.
known them since 1998.
Right.
And when I found out what Jeannie's maiden name was, Jeffords, we actually tried, Eve, that was the rapper.
Yeah, yeah.
We actually tried to see if Jeannie was related to her. They were from the same area, but we couldn't figure it out, so we were like, we'll fly y'all.
Isn't that something?
Mom.
First, I would like to congratulate Letitia on her new opportunity.
It's very sensitive.
Yeah. Well, Gene, I work at Lakeshore Drive in Dunkirk now, going on my 14th year, and it's an honor to know y'all. Your IQs are better than some of us who claim that we are all right, and I know that.
I got you my bag.
Want your bag?
Eh.
She has your bag.
Okay.
What do you have?
Something in your bag?
Mom bought me.
Her money?
She just got some information about her family.
Oh.
Okay, beautiful.
That might be- I don't know, I've talked to Jean or the staff, but I know they just been getting some information. They're trying to get her birth certificate.
Henry, did you ever, have you talked to your parents since you were 3? You don't know, you never saw them?
No, we just found out a little bit about Henry and his cab representative from Willowbrook is trying to get some more, but we think that Henry was actually born in Georgia, and then his mother moved to the metro area. But